Hello, everybody, and welcome to Walking Between Shadows. I'm Taryn Elliott, and along with me is my amazing husband,
I'm Ben Elliott.
and we're here to talk about true crime all the time. We're going back to 1995, Knoxville, Tennessee, home of the Tennessee Volunteers.
And one sick bitch.
Very sick bitch. We're going back to Job Corps. Have you heard of this place?
Yeah, I've heard of Job Corps.
I have not. I've heard of it, but I have not heard of it recently.
Well, it was supposed to be a program to save people from crime and
Right.
help teach them skills, but it was nothing but a cesspool.
Yeah, it was a cesspool of criminals. Colleen Slimmer was 19 years old, and she was transferred to Knoxville to Job Corps. She was getting her training in computer technology, and she came to Knoxville from Florida. Also, there was three other people that she met there. Christa Pike, she was 18 years old at the time, and to Daryl Ship, who was 17 years old at the time, and Colleen Peterson, who was 19 years old at the time. Colleen was not really friends with Christa. Christa was a troublemaker, kind of. She was a smart ass bitch. She had this huge love affair with the devil.
Yeah.
The devil.
Yeah, in many cases, the devil incarnate.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy she was in love with, tell me something about him.
His name was Daryl Ship. He was from Memphis, Tennessee. He had transferred to Knoxville. He was going into culinary, I believe, some kind of culinary classes. He was a devil worshiper, so that really sparked Krista's interest. And they would get in their dorm room and worship the devil and wear goat antlers and whatever they do.
Yeah, drink blood and shit like that.
Or they had a shrine in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they would pray or whatever, not pray, whatever it's called.
They would chant to Satan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too.
So, Shadola, is that right? Is that how you say it? Shadola? Shadala?
I think it was Shadola.
Shadola Peterson.
Yeah.
She was a 19-year-old. I don't know where she transferred from.
No.
I can't find much about her.
No.
But so she loved the devil too. And she loved to chant and unpray and everything they do.
Yeah.
So she was hanging out with Christa Pike and Daryl Ship at the time. For several weeks, Christa was giving Colleen hell about having a crush on Daryl Ship.
Mm-hmm.
That's her man. You know, back off, bitch. Colleen actually woke up in the middle of the night in her dorm room with Christa standing over her with a knife, which is fucked up. And
I would imagine it scared the shit out of her, but she still she had to feel like she needed to make amends or peace because she was really troubled by the way this girl was treating her.
Right. So she called her mom. She even called her mom about it and said, I want to come home.
Yeah.
I hate it here. And her mom said, you filled out you signed your whole class shit for the next, whatever it's called. Come on, help me out here.
Well, it was like a semester.
Schedule. Yeah. Finish your semester and then come back. You can come back after the semester.
Yeah, her mom did not pick up on anything she was putting down as far as being scared and shit. So her mom was like, no, you've dedicated yourself to this program. You're staying.
Right, and it's not in most people's vocabulary to think that some other girl that's in class with your daughter is going to be worshiping the devil and do what Christa ends up doing.
I think her mom also thought, this is a program to help get her off the street and do better with her life. Because wasn't she in like a nursing program?
Yeah, Christa was.
Christa Pike was.
Right.
Do we know what program?
Colleen Slimmer was in computer technology.
Oh, okay. But still, her mother thought, well, this is a program to help and get her off the street. And here she is calling, wanting to come home, and it's just homesick or something like that. And the truth is, she was terrified.
She was terrified, yeah. January the 12th was a cold, raining night in Knoxville, and Christa approaches Colleen and invites her to go with them to Blockbuster to get a movie.
With who?
With Daryl and Shadola.
The whole crew.
Right, so it'll be all four of them leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And Christa, really pushes that I'm sorry, I just was acting crazy and I want to make amends with you. I want to apologize. We're going to stop at Tyson Park on the way to Blockbuster. We're going to smoke some weed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's where she hid it for fear of getting caught with it on campus.
Yeah, can't get caught with anything. I looked in a little bit of this Job Corps, and I mean, they have to live on campus. You have to go by certain rules, and if you're under any kind of probation or disciplinary act or failing any courses, you don't get to leave for the weekend or have home visits. You have
Mhm.
to stay there on campus. Here they are. Colleen thinks, okay, I'm stuck here. My mom's not going to let me come home. If this girl's wanting to make amends with me, and we'll smoke a little weed and go get a movie, sounds great. Let's get out of here for a little while.
Right.
So she leaves with them. They
It
all three sign out of the dorms.
all 4 of them.
All four, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So they all sign out and they go for this walk.
So what's going through her head right now? Do you think I mean, obviously she had built up enough self-confidence to believe that this was a real, peace offering.
Yeah, I think so. I think she wanted it
Mhm.
that bad. She knew she had to stay. I mean, let's make amends and let's get through this. And I mean, Krista was saying, come on,
Yeah.
really pushing her. And I think Krista was kind of like a bully, but
And very manipulative.
very.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably coming from her and Tadaryl's practice of Satanism and Shadola too, but yeah, she was very manipulative
Scary. Yeah.
and scary.
Well, they go on this walk and they start walking towards Tyson Park.
Well, let's set this up for a second because she was a little bitty thing, but she looked like a baby doll. Like
Her
she had these
eyes.
dark, sinister
Yeah.
eyes and tons of hair, like excessive amount of hair in her head.
Yeah. Dark hair.
Yeah,
Dark eyes.
yeah. So I mean, she's kind of creepy as it is.
Little bitty thing. 100
Yep,
pounds,
yep.
maybe.
Little
5
bitty.
foot, 5'2".
Mm-hmm.
And Colleen was a little bit taller than that, but I don't think she was very big either. But you got to think there's three in Colleen. And Colleen doesn't know these other two. And she never, let's make this clear, she never had a crush on Daryl
Mm-hmm.
at all. And that's been proven untrue. It's just something that Krista made up in her head. So they leave for this walk and they're down there by Tyson Park. And that's when I think Colleen started feeling uneasy and saying, what are we doing? Are we going to really smoke? Are we stopping to smoke? Are we going, what are we doing? And that's when Krista turns around and just starts yelling,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you do want him. You want to Daryl. And she's, no, I don't. She tries to leave. And when she tries to leave, Krista grabs her, pulls her down, and starts beating her. And it got bad. I mean, at one point, she was said to be banging Colleen's face off her knee
Mm-hmm.
just repetitively. And Colleen starts to run.
Mm-hmm.
And Daryl drags her, knocks her down, drags her, and they move to a different location. A little bit further in the woods, a little bit closer to the agriculture
Campus.
campus
Yeah.
beside Tyson Park.
Yeah.
That's UT Knoxville campus.
Yeah.
So they get there and Krista orders for Colleen to remove her shirt and her bra. She does what she's supposed to, and it gets really bad.
Right.
They start cutting and beating her terribly, cutting her everywhere. And she tries to get up one last time and is thrown on the ground. There's a nearby, like, concrete area that's got some broken up concrete by where Colleen has been being attacked.
Yeah.
Krista picks up the piece of concrete and smashes her head in with it.
So a quote that she told police officers, and this is Christa Pike's quote, before she got to that point where she was smashing her head in with a chunk of concrete. She said, and I said, "Shut up. I don't want to hear you talking to me," Pike recalled later. You know it's harder to hurt somebody when they're talking to you.
Yeah, she's fucked up.
Yeah.
Real fucked up.
So that was a quote from her interview with the police.
So that was when Colleen started bargaining.
Uh-huh.
So when they brought her back and made her remove her shirt, they're starting to cut on her. She's bargaining. I will not tell the police. I will walk home to Florida to my mother tonight, right now, with no shirt, in the rain. I just want to go home. Let me go home to my mother. That's when Krista comes with shut up. It's hard to,
Yeah.
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 Then Krista, after bashing her in the head with a large piece of concrete, she asks her, Colleen, do you know who's doing this to you? Colleen mumbles. I think we listened, she couldn't talk really. She was still alive though. And Christa reaches down and takes a piece of her bone that's exposed from her bashing her head in and pockets it.
Yeah.
So it's sticking out, brain matter around it, and she puts it in her pocket. And while she's putting that in her pocket, Daryl and Shadola are helping to carve pentagrams on her chest and on on Colleen's forehead.
Right. And you found out something through the autopsy that, well, it had to do with the number of cuts.
There was when by the time Colleen was found, which we'll get to that, but there were so many wounds on her they lost count.
Yeah.
They lost count after 100.
Yeah.
So all of them were doing this.
Mhm.
That's pretty evident. But so Christa, they all wait, make sure she's dead, and they go back to the dorm. So 4 of them signed out, and 3 of them signed in.
Mhm.
I cannot remember what Krista's roommate's name was at Job Corps, but she recalls and was on the witness stand that Christa was dancing around that night, la 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 la, showing her the piece of bone, saying, "This is not a rock. This is a bone fragment. It's from a skull. This is not a rock."
Mhm.
And then tells her that this is not mud on my shoes. It's blood. It's not mud on my jeans. Well, before they go back to the dorm, they stopped at a gas station, cleaned it a little bit up, threw away Colleen's IDs.
Right.
Then they go back and sign in. So they went and cleaned up themselves up and threw everything away at the gas station. I believe they threw away the murder weapon, which she had taken a box cutter and a meat cleaver and did some damage, of course.
But did they dispose of anything else?
No,
There weren't clothes or anything disposed of at that time?
no.
Oh, okay.
So they go back to the dorm. She's dancing around to her roommate,
Yeah.
showing off the fragment of the skull. The next morning, some runners are out running and they spot a large pool of blood in the like
It was in the pathway, and
path.
it led. They could tell somebody had probably or something had been drugged because it went off into the woods
It
from the
led
path.
it led to an area. So they
Yeah.
called campus security,
Yeah.
and he comes, or groundskeeper, and he comes and checks it out, and they discover Colleen's body.
Well, the guy first walked up and thought it was some sort of animal.
Right. The guy came up and thought it was some type of animal. I mean, she was unrecognizable. You got to imagine.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean, covered in blood and debris, and yeah, she looked like a mangled mess.
right. So the police come to the scene, and who else shows up?
Christa Pike.
Excited. Oh, she's loving it. She's asking, "You got any suspects yet?" Asking the investigators.
Yeah, I mean, there was proof of her excitement because she engaged with one of the cops.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Needless to say, within 36 hours, they were all in custody.
Mm-hmm.
Autopsy report came back, and I mean, it was brutal. She lived I mean, this went on for an hour
Yeah.
of being attacked.
Yeah, and I think before that, before they even knew what the autopsy said, I mean, they had Krista in custody and Daryl and the other one,
Mhm.
and she took them back to the murder scene, reenacted everything,
Yeah.
told them where she had washed up and thrown away the murder weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was all in it.
She was excited about this. So
Mhm.
this really made her blood flow.
So they were interviewing her, and I've got another quote from her, and this came from her interview that was recorded with Knoxville PD. But she says, "I don't want to say that I intended to kill her, but I would say that I didn't care if she died." Pike would later tell an investigator, "I wouldn't lose any sleep over it if she did."
Yeah, she's fucked up. So I wanted to know why she was so fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, what happened to her as a child? So I started researching her a little bit, and I found out that really nothing that's too. I mean, it was bad. I mean, it's bad enough.
Hmm.
So her grandmother, her dad's mother, raised her until she was 12. Her dad wasn't really present. I think he was a truck driver. Her mom was a runaround, like to bring men in and out of relationships.
Yeah.
Krista said, probably over 20 that she could recall. her mom, so when her grandmother passed away of cancer when Krista was 12, she goes back, moves back in with her mother. And her mother is just kind of lets Krista do whatever she wants to be her friend more than her mother, and lets her
Yeah, they started
smoke.
smoking weed together, and
Right. And that's really, I mean, I think she had some type of brain injury when she was a child, but it was nothing that was just outstanding, I don't think.
well, even she admitted that the diagnosis was it may have slightly affected her short-term memory, and that was it.
Right.
Yeah, wasn't like her brain was rewired because of some congenital defect or some traumatic brain injury,
Yeah.
but that was all they really found about her in her
Yeah.
psychological eval and her physical eval.
And she started going to therapy when she was like, and she was talking about this with some guy interviewer and
Mhm.
talking about how she had started therapy when she was 5 years old and how her first therapist tried to hypnotize her when she was 5.
Mhm.
I don't know why she was going to all this therapy, and she didn't either, really. So there might have been more to it than what we know.
Mhm.
That with as far as like school records. And he asked, "Did your mother involve you with this therapist, or did the school?" And she couldn't recall. She didn't know.
Right.
And her mom's still around,
But she was living with her grandmother when all that was going on, right?
right?
Yeah. So I don't think anybody's ever answered what her grandmother had to do with that, if anything, either.
Her grandmother died when she was 12.
Right. But if she was doing therapy when she was
Yeah, I don't
5,
know why.
her grandmother had to have had something to do with that.
She said her grandmother was a really religious woman.
Yeah.
Took her to church. She went to, you know, every Sunday.
Well, she might have been going to see the preacher, and you know how bad that is.
Well, right. So it was a Baptist church, in North Carolina.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
North Carolina. And yeah,
Yeah,
when
not
her
just
mother,
exacerbated with Jesus' name.
so we know she loved the devil.
Yeah.
She's into this devil worshiping. Her grandmother had her in church all the time. So what was the change? She says the change was when watching her grandmother suffer all those years with cancer. The last couple years she lived with it. It just made her resentful.
Right.
She went to church every Sunday. She did everything she was supposed to do for God, and then this happens to her. So fuck that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's kind of
Lots of resentment, like you
a
said,
lot of resentment, and then runs into Daryl
to Daryl.
to D- to Daryl's ship at Job Corps, and he was a troubled kid. I mean, he came from Memphis, so that says enough.
Yeah, but I mean, I read and saw where his mother was pretty strict, and he had started to get into trouble, and was troubled, and she recognized it and actually encouraged him to go to Job Corps to try to get him away from there.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he went and found this little bitch, and it got even worse.
right. They were drinking cow blood, whatever they do.
Yeah,
I don't know what they were doing,
yeah,
but this was a sacrifice. Colleen was a
yeah. But they're even
sacrifice.
pussies too, because what they do is take milk and put red food coloring in it.
Yeah,
So they're not fucking real. You want to get real? Come out to some fucking E&E training with me and drink the blood of a fresh killed deer and then bite its heart in half. And then
okay,
you'll understand what that kind of shit really is like.
okay, that sounds great. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
but it's
pass on that.
survival. I mean, but they're pussies. They claim all this dark magic and dark art, and it's all bullshit.
Yeah,
But it wasn't bullshit the night they went out into that park.
no, it was not.
No.
They couldn't take any of that back. She still had this piece of skull in her pocket whenever the police arrested her. And
Yeah.
of course, they discovered that pretty quick. And autopsy, he had to remove the skull from the body
Uh huh.
to put it back together.
Yeah.
So that was pretty
So even at the
yikes.
trial, the doctor brought the skull,
Yeah,
wired back together,
yeah,
and had that piece that was in Christa Pike's pocket and showed the entire court that it fit perfectly.
perfectly.
Yeah.
Well, that piece is still in evidence.
Yeah.
That in March of 1996, Colleen was sentenced to death. I mean, not Colleen. My bad. We know in March of 1996, Krista was sentenced to death in
Mhm.
Tennessee,
Mhm.
and she still remains there. And through that time, she's done a lot of appealing and all this. But now to Daryl,
Tadero got life with the possibility of parole, and he's serving it at the facility in Tiptonville, Tennessee.
Right. I think he was eligible for parole in 2020, but I do not think he got that.
Right. It was 25 years. He had to serve at least 25 years.
Right.
So, and while they were in prison, I mean, when this all was still kind of going down between the time Christa got sentenced and sent to prison and Daryl went to court, she wrote him a letter. And I've got an excerpt from that letter that I'll read to you. It says, "Please write me. I miss you so much. You see what I get for trying to be nice to the hoe? I went ahead and bashed her brains out so she'd die quickly instead of letting her bleed to death and suffer more, and they fucking fry me. Ain't that some shit? Please write me and tell me that what you're feeling. Also, tell your lawyer if he wants me to testify for you, I will. Love you for the rest of my life, Little Devil."
That was her nickname. She gave
Yeah,
herself that. So that's gross too. To
yeah,
give yourself your own like a I don't know. It's
yeah.
just weird.
But she was doing this reach out, and it didn't even make it to him because the prison actually intercepted the letter
Yeah.
before it got out.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he ever heard of it until it was brought up in his trial and his sentencing or something like that.
And
But
Shadola. So what happened to Shadola?
yeah, so there was insufficient evidence to prove that Shadola Peterson participated in the actual murder, and she got sentenced to 460 days in jail, just a little over a year and a third, and was given 6 years of probation for accessory after the fact. So
Wow.
she got off for nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So yeah, she turned state on them, right?
Yeah, she
Like
did.
but they really didn't need it at that point.
No, I mean, Christa Pike had admitted to everything, had reenacted everything, and I kind of think they felt like they knew she would go back and forth in the appeals process. So
And she
during
did.
her trial, they needed somebody that was, state's evidence and would testify to the facts.
Well, she put on quite a production with her sentencing in '96.
Oh yeah,
Of just cried and then cared, Mama.
screaming at her, "Let me hug my mama before I go."
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
we
that
have a
same
tape on
mama that
that.
didn't give two shits about you.
Yeah, you're right. So in 2001, Krista attacked another inmate out in the yard, right?
Yeah, a fire had occurred in the wing of the prison they were being held in, and they got put into an exercise cage together. And that inmate's name was Patricia Jones. She was quite a bit bigger, and
Right. She was like 200 and something pounds, right?
yeah. And Christa Pike was still like 110, soaking wet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when they got put in the cage together, and why? Because there was a fire, and they had to be evacuated to a central place.
Right. Because death row, they don't really get to have any other kind of relationships or interactions with any of the other inmates,
No,
unless it's an emergency, I guess, like this.
right, 23 hours a day in the cell and 1 hour outside. But even when they go outside, they're on their own. They're escorted by prison guards,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just them.
There was another inmate out there too, right?
At this time, because of the fire, there
So
were
there's
three in
three.
the cage. Yes.
And the other one that was out there was on death row too. No, she was not on death row. She was life
hmm
for devil worshiping and
And murder.
3 counts.
Yeah, three
Right.
counts of murder.
So her and Krista were buddy
Right.
because they both loved not Jesus. They did not love Jesus.
They were the Antichrist.
They anti-loved him.
hmm
Yeah.
So these three are in this holding cell because of this fire. And do you know the circumstances that she attacked this Jones
Well,
lady?
Patricia Jones had been messing with Krista, according
Kind
to
of
Krista.
bullying her, right?
Right, calling her fried chicken.
Yeah, yeah. And making electric chair sounds at her. Yeah, they fixing to
And
fry your ass, bitch.
and so she was, I guess maybe Patricia also said something about her or to her friend that was out there the other day, devil worshiper.
Mm-hmm.
She jumped her.
Right.
Krista jumped Patricia
Yep.
and took her shoestrings out and choked her. I mean, they had to resuscitate her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I've got another excerpt.
Okay.
During a recorded call with her mother, Pike described the murder attempt in detail, admitting to trying to choke Jones to death and watching her eyeballs bug out of her head. She told her mother she was passed out on the ground, Mama, twitching, foaming at the mouth. If I'd had 30 more seconds, we'd have a little chalk line out there in our rec pen, and that bitch would be gone somewhere.
She's lovely.
Isn't she?
Yeah.
She's the bride of Chucky.
Yeah, maybe worse.
Yeah,
In
probably worse.
2002, she goes in front of the courts, though, and she says, "Let's speed this up and kill me."
Right.
And they agree. Let's do this. Let's fry her. Is that correct? It is.
No, I think you're right. I think that
Okay,
was
so
2002. At this time, I mean, she was saying that she was just tired of
the appeal
the
process.
appeal process and the attention. She also had signed her rights of her story over to her first attorney.
Yeah.
And so she
Yeah.
was pissed off because that guy was going to make all the money from her story and
She
had no
needed more
reason to share
commissary.
it. Yeah, and she needed some commissary, and that bitch couldn't get it. This guy's getting millions, and she's
She
getting
wants some hot
50 cents.
Cheetos.
Yeah, hot Cheetos. But the other incident that occurred, after she went back and told the courts, "I want y'all to kill me, hurry up," and they said, "Yes, we'll do that," and she actually cheered and started crying again in court.
Oh, I love you, Mama.
Yeah, and turned around hollering at her mama again. Yeah, but it was, here we go on the wishy-washiness of the appeals process.
Yeah.
She started that shit again by laying claim to everybody else's participation wasn't what it was told in court.
Right. Yeah, it's a blame game. It's to Daryl. He played part in it.
Mm-hmm.
Shadola, she played part in it.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't they having to? Well, it really doesn't matter. I mean, you did what you did. You were rotten. You're
Mm-hmm.
rotten. I mean, and you're not going to change.
No.
And she's just one of them people you can just look at and know that we're wasting our fucking money.
Yeah.
Leaving her in prison.
Yeah,
Because
as
here it is.
taxpayers, we're wasting tons of money on stupid
What has it been?
shit.
20, how many years? 25, 26, 7 years?
Well, it was 91, right, when it happened?
95.
95?
Yeah.
So you're talking about 27 years.
27 years.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Well,
I mean, we're still, she's been in there. And here's the deal. Here's what's going on with this, too, with that piece of the skull that she had in her pocket.
mm-hmm.
So that's still in evidence. And until she is executed, Colleen's mother cannot get that piece back and put that in. She's had the rest of Colleen cremated. She was so mutilated. I mean,
Right.
and there's no telling how many tests and autopsies and all that, So she's cremated, but she cannot be fully cremated until that piece is returned to Colleen's mother.
Yeah.
And they won't do that until she's executed.
Her body's not fully intact because they still consider it a crucial piece of evidence.
Yeah.
So even though they're going through appeals again, now to remind everybody, they'd gone through and maximized the appeals process already. And then she wants to go back to court to say, kill me now, kill me as soon as possible. But when they do that, she gets scared and starts another set of appeals that the state allowed. And in the middle of that, in 2012, she tried to escape prison. She started hatching a plan to escape prison.
Oh, that's right. She had something going with one of the guards and some idiot guard and then somebody on the outside.
A pen pal.
See, she has a lot of these.
Yeah.
These followers like the
kind of like the Mansons.
The Mansons.
Like when Charles Manson was in prison,
Yeah.
he would get thousands of letters a day or something.
And she has those weirdos.
Yeah.
That follow her.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah. Sick as fuck.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was this corrections officer and this pen pal. He did not get in trouble for anything because again, the prison system caught all the correspondence.
Right.
But the corrections officer was fired from his job because of it. And then
as he should have been. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't face charges, did he?
No, he did not.
Wow. Oh, nice.
No. And like you said, Colleen Slimmer, her body's not fully intact because of this ongoing appeal. And, in 2020, in August of 2020, the state petitioned the court to set a date to kill her.
Yeah.
And here we are 2 years later, and I still don't think we've heard anything.
No.
And of course, they're using COVID and all that bullshit as reason for delay. And,
it's time to fry that chicken.
Yeah. But, May Martinez, which was Colleen Slimmer's mother, I have a quote from her. It says, "Execute her or give her life and give me the rest of Colleen back so I can live."
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. I mean, that's awful. It's a
yeah,
terrible story. You can't find out much about Colleen. I don't think she had near as many issues at all. Just trying to do something different with her life and
hmm
and run into some bitch like that, and they take it
yeah,
all away.
yeah. May Martinez continued to say, "Over the years, Tennessee has mailed me body parts in a box, not saying what it is or anything like that, and I just get body parts. I get bones in boxes." And they did eventually return Colleen's skull to her without that piece that Christa Pike was keeping in her pocket.
Mm,
So that one little fragment is holding closure up for May Martinez.
right. Yeah. It's very cold. It's very cold, and all we can do is just push for this execution. I think that needs to be done.
Yeah.
That should have already been done. I mean, just fry the chicken.
Yeah. And mind you, there's been a lot of, podcasts and reality stories told and books written. Well, not a lot of books. I think there was just one book. There's a reason we cover this kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
it's not always to keep the criminals in check, but to keep law enforcement in check. Everybody needs to know about this and hear about this and talk to their people, their representation, and say, "Look, can we do anything? Can we encourage the court to set a date?"
Right.
Because
That
I
needs to
think
be
if they
done.
set a date, we need to go up and have a séance.
Yeah. Looking like candles.
I can't believe you would make me do that.
Shut up.
Thanks everybody for watching. This has been Walking Between Shadows. Again, I'm your host, Ben Elliott, and my wife, Taryn Elliott. Look for our next episodes coming soon, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button.